Welcome to the Grove Podcast, where we feature Evergreen members and their real-life stories of salvation, transformation, struggle, and hope. I'm Joy Gabbert, and today we have Jessi Long on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, can you just tell us who you are and how long you've been at Evergreen?
My husband and I have been married for 8 years. We actually just celebrated our 8th anniversary. We have a 6-year-old daughter named Hadley and a 4-year-old daughter named Harper.
And where do you guys each serve here at Evergreen?
So we actually both serve in the preschool where our children are, although Hadley will be moving up to children's. We've been with the preschool. We have been with Evergreen for about 5 years now.
Very nice. So why don't you start with your childhood?
Okay, so I was born and raised in Jinx. I was blessed to be born to two strong believers. We were in church every time the doors were open. My parents used to joke that I was born on Monday and was in church on Sunday. So I had all the head knowledge. I knew, who Jesus was. I knew who God was. But I guess I was about 9 when I actually became a Christian. About 6 months prior, I started having real extreme anxiety. It just, one day I just started having these horrible, for instance, I have 2 brothers, and if I did something mean to them, I would get just this overwhelming anxiety, just this guilt. I don't know if it was just a fear or what exactly that I was going to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. But I spent about 6 months that I would go to my parents and I would be confessing all these sins, and it was just constant. And so my parents decided to take me to the pastor of our church at that time, and we sat down and talked, just kind of explain to me, asking me questions, explaining to me about sin, about salvation, and talked to me for, it was a couple months. And, a few months after talking, I realized that I needed Jesus, that I needed a savior. I finally understood the depth of my sins and, what Jesus did for me. And so I became a Christian. It was like 9 or 10, was baptized in the church a couple months later after that.
So you said that it was kind of anxiety that led you to have those conversations. Was the anxiety kind of relieved after you realized that it was sin and you just needed to confess it to the Lord, or did you still struggle with anxiety after that?
So I think when I would tell my parents, it would lessen a little bit because, they would talk me through, okay, so maybe you need to ask your brother for forgiveness, or that kind of next step. But it was constant. So that one would be solved, and then something else may happen, or just all these fears of, I guess, the future, or what could happen, all these bad things happening to me. Yeah. And now when I became a Christian, that it's that drifted away.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't have that anxiety. I knew that I had Jesus, that I had salvation. But that anxiety, it wasn't just overwhelming.
You kind of just grew up then in the church, normal Christian household upbringing. Tell me about your high school years.
After that, I have always been very involved in the church, was there all through youth, very involved, did the mission trips, was there every Sunday and Wednesday. And they were my family. Those were the people that I hung out with. Mm-hmm. Had pretty normal high school years, went off to college, and right before my senior year of college, I got married to my high school boyfriend. We started dating in high school, and we got married right before I actually had about a semester left of school before I graduated. So
from college?
Yes, okay. From college.
So this was a high school boyfriend that then you guys got married before your senior year of college?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I gotcha. Okay, yeah. How was that marriage?
I would say things were fine, or at least we thought. We did struggle in our communication. Growing up, I was very mindful of guarding my heart when it came, to purity, and what the Bible says about, sex is between husband and wife.
Yeah.
We got married, and so we're married. So it's like that.
You don't have to think about that
I
anymore.
don't have to think about that.
Sure.
I'm married, so that's not. And so I let my guard down. Having communication struggles where I'm struggling, I started communicating with someone else.
Were you going through like depression or anything at the time, or what made you go to somebody else rather than your husband?
So my anxiety started to kick up again.
Okay.
It's something so hard to describe.
Mm-hmm.
It started kicking up probably right before I graduated high school.
Okay.
It's something hard to talk about if you deal with anxiety to someone that doesn't.
Sure.
They can be sympathetic, but it's really hard to understand until you've been in that situation.
Yeah.
My then husband, it was hard to communicate.
Because he hadn't
really been through a lot of those type of things. And so it was my boss at that time who also struggled with those kind of anxiety issues.
Okay, so you could relate to him more.
Yeah, and he understood. The job that I was in was very high stress.
Mm-hmm.
Same for him. We talked a lot, which didn't think anything about it because it's talking. But that's where I didn't guard my heart.
So did that relationship develop into something unhealthy?
Yes, it was something where it began to be things I wasn't telling my husband.
Mm-hmm.
I started telling him. Okay. And so there was that intimacy right there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't see it as being bad because it's just talking.
Yeah.
Then it became more.
Okay.
It started to become physical. I crossed that line.
So after you guys entered into that kind of a relationship, did it last very long, or did you quickly realize that it was something that you wanted to come out in the light?
Maybe a few months.
Okay.
I quit that job thinking that would end it,
mm-hmm.
but it didn't. And then the anxiety became more because this sin needed to come to light.
Yeah.
I got to the point that I knew I needed to tell my husband that what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
I fully 100% take all responsibility for my actions. But when it came out, it was like I was living in this out-of-body experience because it was like, I did what? There was a lot of, I can't believe I let that happen or I did that. And so there was obviously a lot of stress, a lot of anger. I mean, you name it, the feeling was probably felt. My ex and I, we tried for a couple months to make it work, mm-hmm. Counseling, those kind of things. But essentially about maybe 6 months after, he did file for divorce. Mm-hmm. And so we got divorced, and I spent probably a good year angry at God. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand why he wouldn't work it out. Yeah, so I was angry, embarrassed. I was still, I switched to a different church, but I was still involved. My faith in God never wavered, but I was definitely angry and just a lot of things. And, I want to say that, angry at God, but I mean, angry at myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't like to talk a lot about what had happened. Mm-hmm. But I just remember God saying to me, if you don't share your story, how can I get any glory from it? Mm-hmm. And so I knew then that I wanted to be open. If there's someone out there struggling, I want them to know that they're not alone. God deserves the glory of getting me through that.
We have to have boundaries. God has told us, like, this is the way you act and this is the way that you don't. And just being able to have those things set up. So I'm glad that, with your relationship with Kyle, that those things were then established. Just for fun, why don't you tell us when you guys actually did first meet? Because I think that that's just funny. You said that you both were at camp. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was working as a youth, so I was 15, and Kyle was 21. Yes, he is 6 years older than me. He was the lifeguard. And so, I mean, our churches were there. I was not old enough to be a counselor, so I worked in like the snack shack, mm-hmm. and like serving meals. but he didn't know my age, and he just thought I was older. And so one of the last days of camp, he asked like for my number or to take me out, something like that. And I said, well, maybe when I'm able to drive. And I swear Kyle's eyes got massive, and he was like, how old are you?
Oh, no.
And I said, I'm 15. And poor Kyle, poor
never
Kyle.
mind.
Yes. He was like, nope. So funny story that we will definitely share with our children when they're older. But
then you met later, and this is after your first marriage. So now you're in your 20s.
Yes. We just reconnected via Facebook.
Yeah.
He messaged me. He likes to say I took a week, but it was like 3 hours to accept his friend request.
Yeah.
But we just kind of started talking on Facebook. And then I was living in Edmond, and he was here. And we just started talking, and then, slowly started dating. And then I eventually moved back to Oklahoma. I was in Oklahoma, back to Jinx. And we started dating, and then we were married in 2016. So it was like 2.5 years after we started dating, and got married and had our girls shortly after.
Okay. And so then after you guys were married, did you guys have a church home together?
We were going to Life Church at the time. And then we had Hadley, and God kind of started showing us that it was time to move on.
Okay.
Kyle just literally Googled churches this way, and then it was May of 2019. I was pregnant with Harper when we joined. So.
Okay. So you guys came May of 2019, and then you had your second daughter also in 2019.
Yes.
Okay. 2 little girls, and you just came to Evergreen. However, you and we were in the same life group or Sunday school class when we came, because we came in the following year, 2020. I remember there was a time that you and your husband came, and you guys shared with us some news, but I will let you tell us what that news was.
So brother's wife, she had turned 40, and they had found 2 spots on her mammogram. So they wanted to do further testing. My brother lets us know we're praying, praying that it's, everything's benign, and God just laid on my heart, and it was just like clear as day that I needed to go get checked. Well, stubborn as I am, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So I told him no, and I was like, I don't have any symptoms. Why? That's, I felt like that was being a hypochondriac, like sister has it, now you're going to get tested. So I just kind of brushed it off. And then a few days later go by, and I cannot stop thinking about it. And it was just like, I don't have symptoms, there's nothing wrong. I'm fine. We get her news back, and things were benign, thank the Lord. I schedule. I was like, okay, fine, we will do this. That was on November 10th, and that was a Friday. The following Monday, I got a call from the breast center, and they said that they had found some things that were concerning, and they wanted to do a diagnostic. Not the news you want to get, but because my sister-in-law had just gone through that, I was like, okay, they're just being thorough and still not really stressed, just, okay, we got to do this. So then on the 21st, which was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we go, they do a diagnostic mammogram and an ultrasound. Kyle was with me. My mom had our girls. They did the diagnostic. Then I wait for a little bit, and I go do an ultrasound. The ultrasound tech is doing the ultrasound, and I can just tell on her face. And it was like I knew. She told me that she wanted to go get the radiologist or go check with him to make sure she got the images, and she was like, sometimes they're just a little too grainy. And I just knew. I knew something was wrong. So she goes, and I'm expecting her to come back in a few minutes. And when she comes back, she has the radiologist with her. This is about 11 in the morning, and he was like, there's definitely something going on, and asked if I was able to come back in 2 hours for a biopsy. And there was actually 3 biopsies. So I said, yes, we will make it work. At that point, I wanted to get in. So we go, we actually take our girls to Kyle's parents, and then my parents come up and wait with Kyle. And I do my 3 biopsies, and then I head home. The doctor was very nice, and he said, I'm glad we got it done, but you probably won't find out anything till Monday because of the holiday. So I said, okay. So the next day, Kyle goes to work. My in-laws are bringing the girls over, and my mom's at the house because I'm still pretty sore. And she's like, I'll help you, and we'll just have a low-key day. So she's over at the house, and we're just watching TV, and I get a notification in my chart. And I knew, part of me is like, don't look at it, but there's no way I couldn't.
Right, yeah.
So I open it up, and the first thing I read is invasive ductal carcinoma. It's cancer. And within me reading it, I tell my mom, and I think I don't think we said 2 words. We were just kind of, it was like shock, numb, not sure. My doctor calls maybe 3 minutes after, and he goes over it with me, which I don't know that I remember anything from that phone conversation because all you hear is cancer. So that was the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving. We we tell our families, and a lot of in shock, numb. I mean, I think I don't think it really sunk in for about 2 weeks of what was going on. But we shared that Sunday. I can remember we shared that Sunday in Sunday school, and immediately our Sunday school just stopped and laid hands, and they prayed over us. It was the first time, I think Kyle, it's a lot to hear your wife has cancer, and they started praying, and he just lost it. He just started crying. And that was the first time. I think he was trying to be strong for me. Yeah. And I think I was trying to be strong for him. And he just, I think that's kind of when it hit for him what was going on.
Yeah. But when you share, especially I think within the Christian community, when you share with your church family something that you're going through and they react in that way, of showing you hey, we're here for you.
Yeah.
You can realize that, I don't have to be the strong one all the time.
Yeah.
But that was just the very beginning of your journey with cancer. So tell us what happened after that.
The biopsy showed that it was in both my breast, and that it was in my lymph node. So with it being in my lymph node, they needed to do a PET scan to make sure that it had not metastasized to my brain, bones, lung, or liver. That was actually done at night. It was an 8 o'clock PET scan. It was pretty late. And then I didn't find out till, I think, 1 the next day. And that was almost the longest day. In my mind, I'm thinking, I feel fine. But I also didn't have any symptoms with the initial cancer. So there was so much worry and anxiety of what am I going to find out next. But thankfully, it had not metastasized. It was just in where they had biopsied. So that was definitely a big praise. So from there, my doctor wanted to do surgery first. So they scheduled me for a double mastectomy it was the 2nd of January. I don't remember much of that day. Yeah. But Kyle was telling me after I was out of the surgery, he was just telling me all the people that came. I do remember when I had gone back, they were getting my IV and all that stuff, and Philip Jackson came back there to pray with us, and that that just gave Kyle and I both a peace. It was just a reminder that we weren't alone, and it just kind of gave us okay, we can do this. But there were so many people in the waiting room, and I never even saw, and if I did, I don't remember. But even in December, a meal train was set up for us, and I don't think I've had to cook in 6 months. So I had my surgery. They started chemo. It was February 19th, I believe. I went once every 3 weeks, and then I got a month off after that, and then I started radiation, and that was 33 treatments. You go every day, Monday through Friday. It was this summer, and so it was actually 7 weeks. I was off 4th of July. The center was closed, and then actually my last day was supposed to be on a Friday, and the Microsoft outage knocked my radiation machine down. And then actually just a few days ago, my doctor and my oncologist, they say that they don't like to use the word cancer-free, but they said there's no evidence of disease. So I am going to take that as big celebration. Definitely, even still kind of in shock now. I feel like I'm so excited and so thankful. There's still a part of me that feels like I can't believe this all just happened this year.
Yeah. That's a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it was.
Because that was just this last December. And as we are recording today, it's the last day of July.
Yeah.
And so all of those things, the surgery, the chemo, the radiation, going through something like that, like you're on survival mode.
Yeah.
Like you're probably still kind of in that mindset right now. Like you haven't had a lot of time off of anything right now. What are some things that sustained you guys as a family or you throughout that time? Was there any scriptures or songs or anything that helped you get through that time?
There's the song by Mercy Me, that's Even If. It's just a reminder of how the goodness of God is not based off of our circumstances. He is good no matter what. And I think that was just a great reminder to me of just how good God is and how the fact that he's in control, that he is sovereign over my life. And no matter what happens to my body, he is good. He is in control and he is Lord of Lords. At that point, I think I just decided that I was going to fight this battle and I was going to do it to glorify him. So there were days that were a lot harder than others, even if it was maybe not physically how I felt, but just emotionally how I felt. And I just had to, each morning, I just had to lay it at the feet of Jesus. Like I just had to lay it down. I don't know what the story is going to look like, but it's his story.
I remember that, I think it was when you first started chemo is when we first started this podcast. And our first episode, it was with Randy Jeffers, and we hadn't released it, but we had it almost fully edited, and I sent that to you. Was that something that was able to minister to your heart at all?
Oh, yes. Randy's story is amazing and encouraging and definitely uplifting. Just to hear the different things that he has been through and how faithful he has remained. And I think that is a big thing because especially in chemo, the week after getting a dose, I felt pretty terrible. Yeah. I was pretty much on the couch or in bed most that week. It's very easy to get in your head and to not have a great outlook on your health or on life. Like, I'm 36. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I have 2 young girls, and the podcast just really, it's encouraging to hear other people's stories and to also know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And there were also, I've had several ladies from this church that have reached out that have been in the same battle, and just the prayers, the food that was brought, the help that was offered, just an encouraging word or a hug. I can't fathom not being here at Evergreen in this time, especially because, they have just wrapped their arms around us and just have carried us through this and been support for me, for Kyle, for my girls. And I can't tell you how thankful I am for that.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about how there was some women who would pray for you. We do have a group of ladies here that they've been meeting for years as a prayer group. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those people and how they've brought you in?
I think it was 2 years ago, I did a Bible study with Terry, and in it, they have a group. It's Terry Wilms, Carol Kirtley, Natasha Koski, and Kelly Caldwell. And so we were all in a group. I just love those ladies, and I call them my old ladies, but because I'm the young one of the group, but I love them so much.
Love that.
Yes, they are. So we got pretty close over Bible study, and then when I found out and I shared with them, they just prayed over me. Constantly. They've been there. They still are there. Whether it's just asking how I am or what they can do or bringing over things. And so that has been, such a blessing. And I'm so thankful for those ladies. Diane Gabbert, she, whenever I was diagnosed, she also reached out to me and shared her story, some of her story with me, and just an encouraging, text of how are you doing, that kind of thing, just to check on me. And same with Michael. They saw us in the hall one day at church, and he, just let Kyle know, like he knew what it felt like to have a wife, a young wife that, was battling breast cancer, and, to reach out if we ever needed anything. And so we were definitely, very thankful for that.
What your story shows how this journey can be when you are a part of a church and you have a family of people that can come around you. And I hope that is an encouragement to other people who are either in our church or outside of our church who are walking through something hard and realizing the importance of being in a church body where people can come around them. I am just so thankful for you coming and sharing your story. I want to back up just for a little bit. We touched on it just a little bit. I am very thankful that you were brave and opened up and shared a hard story for you. Like, I could tell that it was hard for you to share with us about the sin that you walked through in your 20s. What is something that you would want to say to somebody who might be walking through something similar with a sin that they're hiding?
To find an accountability partner, someone that is going to ask the tough questions, someone that's going to hold you accountable, someone that's going to speak the truth to you, is definitely a big thing. And I think that is definitely important, and maybe something I wish that I would have had at that time. The truth needs to come out, as hard and as daunting as that seems. You gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta be honest with God. You gotta be honest with your spouse. Putting up boundaries is one of the greatest things you can do for your marriage. I think there's just things that you do because you respect and love your spouse. And I would never, ever want to give Kyle that reason to doubt or to have any type of worry. So I definitely think, and having that those hard conversations is also important. Like, you have to be able to communicate and be on the same page with your spouse.
Yeah. With cancer or a diagnosis, is there anything that you would want to say to them?
Actually, the first Bible study I did with Terry was with Luke, and in Luke 8, we read about the disciples and Jesus being in the boat and the storm raging. I think it is such a sweet reminder that in those storms, you want to ask, where was Jesus? And he's right there in the boat with us. And I think that is what that reminder, and that has just gotten me through so much, knowing that Jesus is right here with me. He has been through this with me, and he didn't leave the boat. So if someone is in this process, or, just got that news, I just want to remind them that Jesus is in your boat. And that sounds really corny when I say it, but it's so true. And, someone told me whenever also I was diagnosed, about keeping like a book, of just appointments, or, all things that happened in this diagnosis. And, my prayers, my anxieties, all those type of things. And it's one of the best things to look back at, because I can look back and see the prayers that God have answered. And when he had to, carry me through the different parts. And so that is something that I was told whenever I was diagnosed. And I think it's so helpful. It's basically like a journal, but you keep everything. So, either medical stuff, but more importantly, you see what the Lord has gotten you through.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Just thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us today. Thank you for tuning in and listening to today's episode. If you have any questions or want to hear about our church, please visit our website at evergreenbc.org. That is evergreenbc.org.